Gabby Bernstein, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so mellow here. I'm in the treehouse with Cookie.
Yeah, Laurel Canyon's it has that effect on you.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm in a treehouse. And your dog is just like so relaxing. And the jet lag.
Yeah. Cookie is kind of a good hack because she's a little oxytocin machine.
Totally.
So it's fun to, I never think about it in a clinical sense
it's
like that.
It's totally oxytocin. It's funny. It's like I have this 10-month-old and he's like all over everything. He can't sit still. But that magic hour between 6 and 6:30 after he's had his bottle and he's knocked out and you get to just hold him for as long as you want. That's my moment. That's my oxytocin moment. Yeah.
So he's what, 10 months?
He's 10 months old.
Oliver?
Yeah.
How has being a mom changed you?
In so many deep, deep ways. The greatest gift my son has given me is an opportunity to recognize my child self in a different way and to have a deeper connection to little Gabby. Because,
interesting. I've not heard that. I always ask parents that because I'm not one yet.
There's a lot in it. If you have a trauma history, having a child brings all of it up, and it's a gift because it's actually driven me to do deeper work than I ever thought I would be capable of doing. Some of that began, I had postpartum anxiety and depression and insomnia, and I was diagnosed 6 months ago, and I've been healing from that.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, it was very, very dark, and I've been very proudly speaking about it because I want to save people because it's,
So this is it's a biochemical hormonal thing that happens. You have this, your hormones are going crazy, obviously. When you conceive throughout your pregnancy, you have the kid, everything just kind of gets rearranged.
Yeah.
And sometimes not in the best feeling way.
Yeah, it's definitely a biochemical issue, and I think a lot of people don't, particularly people in the wellness world. I don't think they don't get the right diagnosis and don't get on the right path to heal, or the path that will potentially save them from a lot of suffering, because they're in the wellness world, or they're no, I can meditate my way out of this. But I knew it was way more than just being a stressed out new mom, because I could not meditate my way out of it. There was my tools stopped working, but my faith didn't stop working. And so it was through prayer and through a lot of faith and trusting in the guidance I was receiving that I allowed myself to be led to the right doctors and the right medication. And I've been speaking very publicly, I've authored 7 self-help books and I had to go on antidepressants.
Right.
And that's something and never in my life did I think I would ever do. And I was part of the stigma, here I was
right.
I'm the asshole, that's
right.
Not understanding mental illness and being meditate, but when you have a biochemical issue and you want to commit suicide, there is a home and place for medication, which saved my life. It saved my life.
That's I have that similar experience because I'm so into biohacking and health and stuff like that. And there's times where I go to Rite Aid and buy some Theraflu or some Tums or some shit, and I'm sitting there going, God, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah,
God, I've got to be able to figure this out. And sometimes it's
no.
Sometimes you do need to just bust out the big guns.
Yeah,
I'm always talking shit about big pharma because I think there's so much greed and inherent deception and evil from that entity in general. But that said, if I get hit by a bus, please take me to Cedars. Don't try to rub some ashwagandha on my goddamn broken femur.
Yeah. I think that like anything, if you had a heart condition, you would take meds if you needed it, right? If it was your life-threatening situation. I think that's the same in many cases with antidepressants and I think that you go into a different area when you start talking about benzos and things like that because it can be far more addictive. But having the right therapeutic guidance when you actually need it. And I completely agree with you. Things are way overprescribed, and I'm glad we're starting here.
Yeah,
because
funny. I'm ignoring my notes.
I was also so ashamed to talk about the meds because I was the spiritual teacher.
Right.
And I actually now am very proud to talk about it and be a voice for mental illness, and also to just recognize that God is in the medication, and God is in the psychiatrist, and God isn't in anything that we abuse, right? because then that's coming from a place of fear. That's misalignment. Even if we're abusing our healthy lifestyle, right? That can be an addiction too.
Right.
So
tell me about it.
Right.
We'll go up and look at the biohacking lab, and you'll see that.
I'll be
in
like,
full effect.
wow, I'm glad you channeled your energy into something good.
Well, it's funny. I've actually been not in a, like a self-critical way, but I like to be as self-aware as possible, and I've really been seeing, and we'll get into this when we talk about trauma and stuff, but the sort of crossover of obsessive compulsive behavior and addictive behavior as it pertains to wellness and all the practices and self-care. I mean, I could literally go all day and not do shit, like get no work done and just play with all the stuff and like how good can I feel? And in the end, at times it becomes like sort of a self-obsessive kind of thing where you're still just thinking about you and how you feel and all that. It's an interesting
You're still trying to control something.
Totally. Yeah. My friend Neil Strauss, who's been on the show a couple times, who I kind of helped get into health because he's just a writer, a successful guy, but started having some health issues and had a baby and wanted to really kind of like learn about health and stuff like that. So I went over to his house a few years ago and did a whole sweep on his kitchen and got all the MSG and aspartame and corn syrup and all the main offenders out. And then he and his wife adopted a really good eating protocol and got all the, cleaning products out of their house and all that stuff. But then he saw how hardcore I was. And one day he's like, Luke, you know why you're into all this shit you're into? Like, to the degree that you are. Yeah. I said, because I'm healthy, man. I'm living the good life. And he's like, it's control. Yeah. Because he'll psychoanalyze you. Yeah. I don't know if you ever met Neil.
No, I haven't.
Within 5 minutes, he'll psychoanalyze you.
That's cool.
That's just how he rolls, whether you ask for it or not.
Yeah.
But it's useful information because he's a well-studied guy.
Yeah.
He said, I bet when you were a kid, you had a consistent or at least periodic experience of being totally out of control.
That's right.
And so now you use all the supplements and all the biohacking and all that to control your environment and control how you feel.
Right.
I was like, fuck.
Yeah. Here it is again.
Right.
Listen, we have so much in common. I think the reason that we used was because of the trauma. It's the reason that we're, even the successes that you or I may be experiencing life may have come from controlling in some ways. And then, of course, the thing I've experienced most recently is like the more I've become settled into being new, and I really mean new, not the manic behavior, even because I think I'd authored like 6 books before I really 6 books before I really came to baseline.
Really?
Yeah. And it's because of it's all because of a trauma history. And every book and every practice along the way got me to a safer and more stable place to get to a place of release and relaxation and really measuring my success based on how relaxed am I.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's really good because I think sometimes I'm starting to get the awareness that through some of the self-care practices, there is a tension behind it. Right?
100%. I actually talk about this in the book. Yep.
I'm actually not relaxed when I'm doing all the things to get relaxed.
Mm-hmm,
and there's all of these
That's right.
These funny sort of double-edged swords that start to appear.
100%.
But I want to back up a little bit.
Sorry, we're going in a lot of circles.
No, it's cool. I am totally nonlinear, and this will go all over the place. I don't know how to be straightforward. I always have my questions. Like I have them. The reason I do my little printouts is actually because there are certain things I really want to make sure that I ask. Okay. And there were times where I was like, I don't need that. We'll just roll with it. And then afterward, I'm like, I forgot to ask them about X, Y, Z. So those are kind of like my don't forget to ask this, Luke. But I like to meander because it's more fun. But back to motherhood. And you mentioned that it's triggering your early trauma. How is the 10-month-old reflecting things that you went through? He's not reflecting anything I went through, and God pray that he doesn't ever. But he's a reminder of what I didn't have because now I am able to give it to him. He is a constant reminder of the love that I have within me. And it's a love that I never knew was I didn't even know it was in there. And the opportunity to give someone a life that
will be very healthy.
So you're able to reflect back on you as a little tyke and see what
not feeling safe, needing to control,
right.
and then creating a space in a home for him to feel completely free, completely safe, even if he's, getting into things he shouldn't be. And to create that space so that he feels free. And then most importantly, to honor his feelings.
It must be really interesting. I think I'm just going to project your worldview because I've read enough of your stuff and heard you on podcasts that I think you would subscribe to the concept that we're a spiritual energy being that comes around and inhabits certain bodies and has these different lifetime experiences. Would you subscribe to
100%,
that?
Yeah.
Is it interesting to look at your son and in a sense know that he's not, quote unquote, your son?
100%.
That he's this soul that has probably been here 10,000 times and you're just kind of another round.
It's a trippy
Do you ever have that experience that
100%.
That you know each other from before or any of that kind of stuff?
All of it. So one thing is very important for parents to hear, so thank you for being this guide to parents now, is that he is not my son. He is a spirit who chose to be Oliver. And I'm, in this form, in the archetype and in the devotion of helping him grow, but he is a spirit that is not mine. That is something that is hard to remember when you're holding this child and he looks exactly like you and you're like, you're mine. Right. But he is, when I look in his eyes, and this was probably the most devastating part about having the postpartum, was I didn't recognize him. And then once I started to really recover, I would look at him and I'd be like, I know you. And the day he was born, I looked at him and I was like, I know you.
Wow.
I know you. I've known you before.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get that sense sometimes with my parents, especially as I've gotten older, I think with my dad, because we were, distant and estranged much of my childhood. But now that I'm older than he was when I was born and even through a lot of my childhood, we're kind of just buds now.
Yeah.
And we learn so much from one another. And I truly feel like this is not our first round.
No.
There's like a really interesting bond there that's strange and it's palpable.
And that these other spirits come into alignment with different people, different spirits at different times for the optimal growth. So I can already see how Oliver has been. He already has been the catalyst for my greatest healing. Let's talk about this. So I had postpartum after my baby, and then I went on medication, and I was ashamed of that and uncomfortable around that. But my psychiatrist said something to me early on that really helped me commit. And she said, taking these meds will give you an opportunity to feel safe enough to do the deeper work that you need to do, the trauma healing. And it has. So I can see, when you can see those moments where like, thank God that happened because now I'm here. Yeah. So I practice EMDR therapy. And I've been able to go to like the deepest, darkest places that I would never have been able to possibly touch without some form of safety and baseline. So I can look back and say thank you. But more importantly, I can see that this soul came in to help me facilitate this healing. Even the day I got pregnant, my healing began, right? And any mother that's listening will completely agree that the moment that you conceive, it was a big ride,
I bet.
And all your stuff comes up. But so that it can be healed. And if you are willing to show up for the assignment, then you'll have a much easier time being a mother.
That must have been so strange, though, to have what I think in many women's experience is kind of the ultimate, right? There's men can't do it, right? You have a baby and it's like, okay, I've arrived. This is the thing that many women are kind of looking forward to. it's one of the purposes of getting married and settling down with the guys so you can have a baby, right? Otherwise, you guys might not even talk to us. But halfway joking. But to have this beautiful, what I'm presuming to be a beautiful experience and just, once in a lifetime kind of thing where you're ushering a soul into this world, into the physical plane, and then to not be happy. That's got to be like such a mind
Well, the first 2 months were pretty good.
Okay.
I did hypnobirthing, so I had a pain-free birth.
Wait, what? Okay, unpack this.
Yeah. It wasn't that it was pain-free, but I don't remember any pain. And I don't, when I experienced pain, I was almost like joy as well. It was a was an interesting experience. Hypnobirthing is mantra. The intention is to create a fearless birth. And it's mantra, and it's meditation, and it's affirmations, and it's visualizations. And then it also changes the language around birthing. So, right, I'm not saying like delivering, I'm saying birthing, right? Or you don't say, you'd say surge rather than, there's just beautiful ways rather than contraction.
So it's like
right?
some NLP in there.
There is NLP in there.
That's cool.
And, so at my birth, I had this like excellent midwife and my acupuncturist and my husband and like 6 nurses. I was just like in this, and I live in a little country town. So it was like my Beyonce birth because nobody else was on the floor. It was just me. And, I had my visualizations. And
so it was at home?
No, at the hospital.
Oh, at a hospital,
yeah.
But you had your crew.
No one was there except for me. I was the only one.
Oh.
I was the only one birthing in that little tiny hospital. And it was
so you weren't like at Cedars? And
no,
like
I'm looking out at like rolling hills and like sunsets. And yeah, most of the time I live in the countryside. Yeah.
Is hypnobirth, you're my hero and point of envy. I mean, I'm in Laurel Canyon now. It's better than being down in the city. But every time I was just in Colorado and then in the Bay
You're like, why am I not here?
Well, every time I get out of the city, my nervous system just goes.
Yeah.
And I think, why is it not like this all the time?
Right.
Anyway, I digress. Right. So this hypnobirth, you're in a small town, so it's in a hospital, but you're still able to have your crew in there and like do it the way you want to do it.
That's right.
Is this hypnobirthing thing? Is it a thing, or is it?
It's a thing.
Is it, how niche is it? Because I've explored a little bit, just because I think that how you bring a person into the world is really going to dictate so much about their life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm a really big proponent, even though I'm a guy and don't know that much about. I know how to practice making babies. But, no, I'm just kidding. But I just think it's really important, things like circumcision and just I don't know. There's just so many things that happen to babies and just the environment and the fact that we look at pregnancy and birth as an illness that you have to go to the hospital for.
Right.
It's sort of like you're born in a hospital, then you die in a hospital,
right?
And you spend as little time as possible.
I'm proud to say that I had probably like the most holistic hospital birth that you could have, and I was able to merge these two worlds, and but also be in an environment where I felt safe. Like I was not the person for a home birth. It was definitely not for me.
Not putting the.
I like to be in control. We know this now.
Not putting the kiddie pool in the living room.
No. But I created the energy. My son came into the world. I had this hip birthing affirmation. We can put in your show notes. It's a really good birthing mix on my Spotify.
Oh, cool.
And this birthing mix going on repeat, and my son came into the world to Jai Jagdish, Hallelujah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And everyone was crying. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was, he came in, and then I'd done some lactation consulting, so I knew because he went right to the boob, and it was epic.
What about the period of, I think it was 3 years that you wanted to become pregnant and were unable to? What do you think was behind that block? Really?
It wasn't a block. It was God's work. Yeah.
Really?
Well, I was blocking it because I wasn't, because I had more work to do spiritually and from a recovery standpoint. I was trying, in 2015, I began trying to conceive. In 2016, I remembered my childhood sexual abuse. And
are you serious?
Yeah.
Just then?
Yeah, I had dissociated from it completely.
Whoa.
It's not that it was in my body, it was in my jaw, it was in my addiction, it was, it was in my gut, like it was everywhere, but I had imprinted memories, but I didn't know. And this is very common that you just, and
I have a friend that happened to.
Yeah.
At 40 years old, he was like, whoa, I was abused.
Yeah.
I was, but I knew from the moment it happened.
Yeah.
I wonder which is worse, if you compartmentalize it and then it just fucks you up subconsciously,
right.
Or if you're aware of it and like ruminating on it your whole life, as I was.
Yeah, it's probably, look, we both went on the same path, so I think it was probably just as bad.
6 to 1, half a dozen the other.
Both got sober at 25 and 26, found Kundalini, I don't know what's worse, but it's bad. And, one of my big missions, and I'm not there yet because I'm still in the I'm getting close to recovery, but to, feeling fully free, but I'm not quite there yet. It's a brave act to face trauma. It's a brave act. And I even said to my therapist the other day, I said, I don't think that I think 90% of people don't even actually get through this. And she said 99% don't actually fully recover from this, because it's not to say, I don't want, and I think that us talking about this is contributing to lessening that percentage, right? Because there's so much shame, and with that shame is probably like this massive wall that's built up against the potential for true healing. So we have to have the bravery to go to that place, and the bravery to do the work. And the work is big work.
It's gnarly. Just when I was in therapy when I was 14 dealing with that shit, and it's like, you think that, at least in my experience, get to the point where I think, okay, cool, like I'm not triggered by the memories. It's seemingly inert at this point, right? I acknowledge it happened, forgiveness on such a deep level for all the perpetrators, for myself, and I think I'm free of that. But I go try to make some money or have a relationship or do the things in life.
There it is again.
Yeah, it's
there
like,
it is
God
again.
damn it. Why is my self-worth in the toilet when I'm like such a successful, amazing, transformed person?
Because look, trauma, there is freedom from trauma. So let's start there. Okay. And I'm going to live to tell. I'm going to write that fucking book. Okay. So wait. Because I'm close. I feel closer than ever before. I've had full exorcisms. Like I've been doing EMDR, and like my whole body would shake, and when like a animal, freezes because they think they play dead, right? They have the ability in minutes or seconds to just shake it out and move on. What happens for us is that we get stuck and frozen in that trauma because we don't have that, shake it out, move mechanism. So when you do something like EMDR therapy, you have the ability to actually have the experience of experiencing the trauma shake out of your body. It's epic. It's pretty wild.
I know you've been a proponent of EMDR, and I've had a couple of friends that have had really great results with it. So of course, because I do everything, do all the things, I went and did maybe like 5 sessions or so, and there was no perceivable benefit to me.
There's 2 things I would suggest. Yeah.
But you're like, whoa, this something's happening. Same with my friend. He's like, within, I don't know. He
within one session, you can have an experience. Yeah.
That's what I hear. It's so funny. I'm like, am I immune to it?
No, there's a few things. I mean, one, you may not have trusted the practitioner, because you have to work with someone that you feel safe enough to be vulnerable and expose your shame. I mean, it's dark, so you have to be working. It was when I found my EMDR therapist, Tammy, that, and I have an excellent talk therapist that, that does EMDR with me as well. But when I found Tammy, who was her energy was like she was a sister to me, not like my shrink,
Right. More of a peer vibe.
Yeah. I mean, she'd seen me speak. I mean, the first day I sat in her office, she said, I have to tell you right now, I've seen you speak. I've read your books. And I was like, I don't care. Let's go. I hear you're good. Let's go. Right. And so we got into it. And to this day, I'm like, look, I got to be free so you can be my friend. And that camaraderie and that friendship, or her energy, just held the space for me to be comfortable in that vulnerability. And so it may be that you haven't found the right person yet. Maybe that there's another path for you that's going to help get that stuff out. Or maybe it just mean that you just got to keep going.
Have you done any hypnotherapy?
I have, yeah.
Did you find that to be beneficial in the same way of...
Well, hypnobirthing is a little bit of hypnotherapy. Oh, okay. So you listen to like hypnosis meditations. And so that was very beneficial for me with my birth.
It seems to me, as I get to the root of why we're fucked up, I'm not including you. I'm just saying, you
can include me, baby.
Those of us that are really diligently committed to a life of how do I say this? Surrendered action,
right? Right. Freedom,
doing the will of the Creator and trying to do good and trying to heal from everything that we've experienced, so that we can be of greater service. Right? Is that at the core of it, man, I really think, and I've just recently discovered something called DNRS, which is Dynamic Neural Reprocessing System, I think it stands for.
Oh, cool.
Annie Hopper, and there's a lot of things. Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza. I mean, everyone's kind of circling around the same truth, which is essentially that your limbic system gets damaged when you're traumatized. Could be a car crash when you're 16, which I had, and all the shit we do to ourselves through addiction and self-abuse, and the crazy shit that other people do to us, and that when the limbic system gets damaged, for some of us, it could be from chemical exposure, EMF exposure, all kinds of stuff that. You get stuck in a fight or flight response.
That's right.
And your what's that thing? The hippocampus, right? Subconsciously stores these memories, and its job is to remember every time something fucked up happens to you, so that you can avoid that happening again. Then throughout your adult life,
you just trigger it all the time.
Yeah, something similar to that thing that happens.
Triggers.
But it's not real. It's a good thing. It's fine. It's not going to hurt you.
Right.
Then you get this adrenaline and cortisol dump that's going on, and there's this feedback loop where you never truly get out of that fight or flight. And so that's what I'm kind of seeing, that's the holy grail, is being able to fix your brain. It's really so much of it's in the brain.
It's about healing the energetic disturbance. So I teach and practice emotional freedom technique, EFT,
the tapping. Yeah.
It's similar to EMDR, and all that kind of work, EMDR, EFT, maybe even what you're talking about. What it does is it heals the emotional disturbance, because it's not like, I have to heal the phobia. I have to heal the disturbance that created the phobia, right? Or I have to heal the reactivity or the addiction. I have to heal the disturbance that created the reactivity and addiction. So the work around, trauma, real good trauma work, somatic experiencing, things that we can do to heal trauma will help us release that disturbance, that stored disturbance. In my case, I think, I lived in fight or flight and freeze in many ways, right? So
freeze is my move.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I get stuck, I'm just like, don't talk, don't breathe.
Right.
Become invisible.
Right.
This is too uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm not a big fighter. I don't like conflict.
Yeah. I did a lot.
Moon in Libra. I like balance. I like chillness. Chillness is always the goal.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Scorpio's here, everybody.
Yeah. When's your birthday?
November 1st.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A couple days after mine.
Yeah.
So anyway, so somatic experiencing, EMDR, tapping, all of this stuff. I mean, I think what we're all kind of zeroing in on here is that all of the shit that we go through are symptoms of the trauma. So we can either Band-Aid all of the symptoms, which I'm an expert at, or we can really dig down to the deep work and face the scary shit and heal the root of it. Yeah, we have to get to the root cause. And I think that true freedom comes when you're willing and brave enough to go to the root cause. And so, I've written these books that give people very practical tools and spiritual tools and help people wake up to a spiritual relationship. But my biggest prayer for my reader is that these books will crack them open to a spiritual relationship, so they start to listen to God and that they become willing to heal on a deeper level. And then with that willingness and that openness, they begin to be guided to the EMDR therapist or this podcast or a yoga teacher that's going to change them forever, or a Kundalini class. Because once you open up that spiritual awareness, then you start to be guided. When you first sort of came out as someone who had addiction issues in the past and talked about sobriety, was there fear about doing that, or did you just kind of take the plunge? Admittedly, I've not read your first couple books. I mean, you go back to 2009 or something. Yeah. So you've been pumping out books for a long time. At what point did you go oh, hey, I used to do blow? I did that right away. So I was speaking publicly for 3.5 years before my first book was published. And I was up on the stage right away saying, hey, I'm sober. And this is why I'm talking about this, because I'm now deepening my spiritual faith. And all along the way throughout my career, I've taught from where I have been. I'm here right now, and that's what I'm going to teach about. And I'm here right now, and that's what I'm going to teach about. And I'm here right now, and that's what I'm going to write about. And I'm here right now, and that's what I'm going to write about. And I continued on that path. So I was very comfortable talking about my recovery because I wasn't ashamed of it. It was when it was things like talking about, I had to be careful before getting on stage and talking about my trauma, because until I was in a place where the shame wasn't so overpowering, because had I gotten on the stage and spoken that way, the vibration of shame would have left a vibration of shame.
So I had to clean that up before I could really go there.
Oh, that makes sense, because you'd be still talking from that place of being captured by it rather than having persevered and overcome it, where you could say like, hey, listen, at least I'm part of the way through this, if not through
I haven't overcome it, but I'm here, and I'm stable enough in this acceptance that I can safely speak about it without triggering people. Because the thing is, if you and I haven't done the work that we've done, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation in a way that would have an impact on people, because they would feel our shame.
Oh, interesting. That shame would be projected because you're still experiencing it from that point of view.
That's right. And I didn't say anything about the antidepressants until I was interviewed in the New York Times. And
hey, if you're going to come out,
so, yeah,
go big.
Fuck it, let's go. And I got to tell you how many people that helps. You know, people that were so ashamed of being on medication but really needed it at a time in their life, or at the stage, or postpartum or something like that. And there are so many people in the wellness world that are just like, you know, taking that conversation and just, you know, just shaming it. And it was only... So the point I was trying to make, though, is the first few months of me speaking about my postpartum, I said, I saw a psychiatrist, because I was terrified of telling my spiritual community that I was on, you know, a medication. And then I got over that. And the other thing also is I was terrified of talking about my postpartum. So I knew I needed to, because I was so ashamed of it. And so that was, for me, a quick turnaround. I was like, okay, I'm going to heal this shame right away so I can help.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good conversation to have, because I think, as I said, that, you know, because I see so much of the harm that's done through big pharma that sometimes I throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Like, I recently interviewed Kelly Brogan, and
she's the opposite of what I'm saying.
Very well-respected psychiatrist, and is also like super anti-medication, because, you know, she found other ways to help her clients and things like that. And I think that's been more my perspective, and also subjectively my own experience.
Well, I was brought up homeopathic, okay?
Really?
When I went to go and fulfill that prescription for the meds, that was the first time I'd ever stepped into a pharmacy to fulfill a prescription.
What?
And I handed them the prescription. I said, I don't know what I'm doing with this. They're like, what? Do you just give it to us and we give you the medication? I was like, does my insurance cover it? Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I mean, you're preaching to the choir. Like, I was, you know, everything had, you know, oil of oregano was the answer, or, you know, ashwagandha, right? Exactly.
Were your parents hippies or something?
Yes, totally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, big time. My mom still is.
Oh, okay.
Big
so
time.
With the postpartum and finding the right, you know, prescription, how long does that last? Is that something that you taper off until?
Yeah, I'll taper off. I want to have another baby, so I'll taper off soon.
Oh, okay.
But Lord knows, if for some reason I notice that stuff coming back, I'll get back on that if I need to. You know, I don't ever want to live in the place that I was in ever again. I was in the most horrific place I've ever. I mean, and I'm so grateful for it, because so many of the people that come to my work have mental illness. I can totally hold them in that now.
Right.
And I can totally get them and understand them.
How does it work with breastfeeding?
So the medication that I was on is safe for pregnancy and breastfeeding. It's called Zoloft.
Oh, okay.
And it's the one.
Oh, I've heard of that.
The one med that is safe for pregnancy and breastfeeding.
Ah, interesting.
But my son was really energetically tuned in with me, and at 5 months we had a really good breastfeeding thing going on. I mean, I had a double D. Like, I went, like, I'm a small little person, and I had so much milk. Like, I was like a cow. And I have trays and trays and trays of milk in my basement from that time.
You freeze it, right?
Oh yeah, I had like massive amounts of milk,
right.
And I would have donated it, but it does have Zoloft in it. I don't want to give somebody my medicated milk, right? But I can still use it if I feel I need to, or I can make soap out of it. It'll be like very relaxing soap.
Oxytocin soap.
Yeah, oxytocin Zoloft soap. But my son like tuned in, and I think he knew I was overwhelmed, and he could feel the overwhelm. And we had this beautiful feed where he was like, we were lying in my bed. Normally I would feed him in a chair or whatever. And he fed for like half hour, and then he fell asleep on me. And I even took a photo of it. I took a picture of him sleeping on my chest. And the next day he gave me the hand. He was like,
really?
I'm done, mama.
Whoa.
Done.
At 5 months?
Yeah, I said, back off, lady.
Wow, that's interesting.
Only would take a bottle. And he knew I needed it.
Yeah.
He knew I wasn't going to be able to cut it off. Because I already had so much guilt and shit going on that he knew I wasn't going to cut it off. So he did.
Back to conceiving, other than, because 3 years is a long time. I mean, now I think it's normal that many women have problems with fertility and things like that. But aside from you just feeling this energetically, nature was saying, oh, you're not quite ready, you need to deal with this and deal with that. Do you think that also had anything to do with how proactive and yang you are with your career? And
yeah, I did.
Being in masculine energy and out crushing,
yes.
writing books, book tours, doing
That's exactly
thing?
right. Yes. So I gave up the drink and the drug like 25 years old, right? And then I became a work addict, right? And I thought like, oh, this isn't a problem because everything I'm doing is in the pursuit of good, and it's so inspirational for me, and I'm having so much fun doing it. But man, I mean, I got to a point where my business was like really successful, and I didn't have nearly enough people supporting me. Like I was doing way too much at that stage when I could have afforded to have a lot more people. And in that 4-year period, I started to, build my team. I started to rely on my team, started to let people help me. I started to, I had more bottoms. For me, trauma really affected my gut. And so I've had a lot of different gut issues. I had SIBO, Candida, but then I got SIBO. And if you really want to clear SIBO, I wrote a blog about it, but if you really want to clear SIBO, which is a hard thing to clear, not only do you have to do all the food stuff, but you have to have a zero stress tolerance, because it's stress that caused it for me. And SIBO is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And that happens when we're in a fight or flight stress state. So I didn't have a gut issue. I had a trauma issue that was creating gut issues.
Right.
But when I healed the SIBO, I made such a deep commitment to let people take over, fully relax for the first time in my life, totally cleared my gut. I cooked for myself for 4 straight months. Every single meal I had came from my kitchen, even when I was going out to food.
I heard you talk about that. Did you ever get flack when you went to restaurants with your little containers?
Literally, I'd walk into restaurants with like bacon and like my coffee mug with my coconut cream in the coffee, like only few things I could eat. And I didn't give a shit. I was like, I'm good. And then people would be like, I want some of that bacon.
Right.
But it was like a keto diet pretty much, but even more restricted. And I think it's a big contributor to how I conceived, because my gut was clear and because I was so relaxed. And since then, I never went back to the work addiction. That's over. Hallelujah. It is gone.
Good for you.
I got a good big ass team doing a ton of beautiful work behind the scenes. I don't even talk to them. Like, they're just doing it. I have one person on my team that I talk to right now who's the director.
That's amazing.
I mean, I call her the conductor. I'm like, I'll talk to you, and then you just make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm constantly studying marketing and business and things like that. And I'm, aside from a remote, I guess I have a team, but not like, I'm doing more than I would like to be doing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I think I learned this at Tony Robbins recently at his Business Mastery about, you have the producer, performer, personality type, which I would say are, and I am as well. And then you have the manager, leadership person who loves to organize and systems.
That's
and
my
all that
Jessica.
Stuff. Like,
God, that's not me.
I'll do anything but that.
That's not me. I mean, you shouldn't try to do it. Don't do it.
Oh no, I'll drive myself crazy.
Yeah.
Things for me, they just don't get done if they're in that category.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Because I haven't found
I would just do it with like complete panic and stress.
Right.
And then I'd mess it all up.
And then you have the kind of biz dev entrepreneurial person that has like all the big ideas and can also execute.
So that's also me. So that
right.
But I don't want to execute them.
Yeah. So you come up with the ideas and like, team, make this thing happen magically.
Yeah, but I was still, up until like 3 weeks ago, I was still in I have to make it happen, because things were structurally a little off. So sometimes you have to just sort of like reorg. And we did. Now all of a sudden things are pretty smooth. But I'm very reliant on one person in particular on my team who I hope she'll be with me forever. That's my conductor. Yeah.
Going back to the yang energy of being out there in the world, getting things done, how do you find balance and polarity in your marriage? As I'm just going to assume you like to be in the role of the more feminine, yielding yin energy in your relationship, and I could be totally wrong. Maybe you don't. You guys have something else worked out. But in any case, in order for there to be continued attraction and polarity, you've got to kind of understand those energies. How do you work that out?
I let him take care of me.
You do?
Yeah. Well, I'm not I'm not living in the masculine like I used to. I was living in the masculine. I was like, I will just like bulldoze over the world, right? Now I'm in a place where I am deeply committed to my serenity, deeply committed to my art, which is speaking publicly and writing books. I don't have any interest in having anything take me away from that. And that work is very feminine. In order to allow the inspiration to move through me, I can't be in that masculine state. And I don't mean like people can't, have major downloads and do great work if they're not in a masculine state. But what you're referring to is like, that type A kind of make it happen kind of thing.
Well,
And
you're very prolific and you've gotten a lot done.
I have a lot to say and a lot's coming through, and I really allow it to come through. But the biggest thing for me right now is that I'm really letting people help me, particularly my husband. And my husband's a genius, and he's every entrepreneur, he's every spiritual entrepreneur's dream. He's, he retired from private equity to come run our business.
Oh, really?
Our
so
business.
You guys work together too?
Yes, and it's brought us much closer. He is an attorney. He's a lawyer as well.
God, you're stoked.
You have no idea. He's also a bass player and like totally into fashion, like Rick Owens head to toe.
No way, really?
Yeah, you dig
You
him.
got the ultimate dude.
I got the ultimate dude. Super into art, amazing manifester. Every home I've ever lived in with him is just like, he like looks in the Wall Street Journal. He's like, okay, we got it. That's our home. And then major deal. Like he's a genius, businessman. And I always offer up Zach for people in the spiritual entrepreneurial space. So, you want to call with Zach, he'll get on the phone with you because he's really helpful, So the answer to your question is, it wasn't always like that when we first started working together. It took me at least a year to let him actually step in. And then when I did, it got better and better and better. And now I'm just like, don't even tell me about it. Do it.
Do you ever have issues in mixing business and finance and all of that? In other words, do you guys mindfully segregate those conversations in that type of work for when it's work time and work environment so that they don't sort of interfere with the romance, romance. I remember years ago, I had a business with a girlfriend, and to our folly, we didn't know some of the rules, but we would like be laying in bed and start talking about the bank account, and business and stuff, and it really kind of killed the chemistry.
Yeah, like we catch ourselves when we're doing stuff like that. We'll catch ourselves when we're like having dinner and talking too much about it. I have a really strict policy for sleep hygiene since my insomnia. And so I have like a no work conversation once we sit down to the meal because it starts to activate me.
Yeah.
And so I turn off my phone at least an hour before bed, and I have no devices an hour before bed, and I have ritual. And so he'll sometimes want to go there, and we used to go there, and I'm like, nah, off.
What are some of your other sleep hygiene tactics?
Bathing. I take long baths. Sometimes I'll do a sauna before I take a bath. I will go up to my office. I don't meditate or read or do anything in my bed because that's one of the things I've learned is like bed is for sex and for sleep. And so I won't do that in my bed. I've been slacking a little bit lately because I'll start reading in my bed because I'm feeling better. So I'm like, I can do that again. But I don't know. It's really good to be in such a structured way where I would go up to my office and meditate. And then once I started feeling myself getting tired, I'd go downstairs. For a second, you just like looked like Luke Perry to me. It was so crazy.
Some woman told me that yesterday.
It was just when you were like puckering your lips, and I was like, "Whoa!"
That's so funny. I don't even know what that dude looks like exactly. I'm gonna have
he
to
looks
Google
a little
him.
bit like you, but
I hope he's good looking because I've heard that twice this week.
He's a great looking man, and I think he died of I don't want to say anything that's not correct, but addiction stuff.
Oh, he did die.
Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm. I think
God
it was addiction. I mean,
soul.
I don't know if that was it, but maybe he's hanging out. Yeah.
That sounded totally disingenuous. God rest his soul, but seriously.
Yeah, no, seriously.
God, anytime someone dies from addiction, I'm just like, oh, there was a way out. It's like, if you could have got him in time.
Well, we'll keep talking about it.
How would you define workaholism? What's the dividing line between being a hard worker and someone who's avoiding their feelings
How about
from
this?
Work?
That you are powerless over work and your life has become unmanageable.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Write the list,
I'm secretly jealous kind of workaholics because I'm a leisureaholic. The way I avoid feeling is I just go have fun and do shit. And,
Yeah,
and
I know.
don't do work.
I know you're kind. I know you're kind. But neither is, you know, anything that we're doing to avoid feeling is a form of addiction, right? I remember what happened when I first remembered my trauma. I was like so depressed, and I was like waking up sad and depressed, and I went up to my desk, and all of a sudden I put my hands on the keyboard and I took a deep breath, and I was like about to get into my work, and I just noticed myself go numb. And in that moment I was like, holy shit, this is how I've been numbing out, you know, since I was 25 when I put down the drink and the drug, right? It was like, this has been my addiction. And I am so proud to say I am in full recovery.
It sounds like it. Sounds like you've been able to find some balance where you're still making money, being successful, helping people.
I've had far more success when I have turned it over. This book, right? All my other books, you know, I've had #1 New York Times bestsellers and all these things, right? And it's because I cared so much about those things at certain times in my career. In this book, I said, you know, I'm not going to focus on the bestseller, and I'm not going to focus on the credentials and the lists and all that. I'm going to just really focus on this book, serving souls. And I'm going to make a commitment to let this book be a vehicle to help people feel good, because it made me feel so good to write it. And, you know, I just went out and did it and had no stress about my book tour and no stress about my, like a little stress when I felt like some things were getting off the rails because people weren't doing things right, but that was just because things were unorganized. But more importantly, like no stress about the outcome. Book's been on the list for the last 2 weeks. Like, you know what I mean? It's like #1 on Amazon, all of Amazon. Like,
really?
Yeah. And
Congratulations.
And it's because I didn't give a shit, you know, and that's actually a big thing in the book. It's not that I didn't give a shit about the book. I didn't give a shit about the pretense, the form.
Right.
I cared much more about the service of the book.
So that comes back to the principle of giving the performance, doing your part, and staying out of the results business, right? I think that's where, especially because I want to get into your book, and I'm super into manifesting right now. Well, I guess I always have been, but coming at it from a little different point of view. And I love so many things that you wrote about in the book, but it's that, I think a lot of people think of surrender as inactivity and just being blasé and not really caring and not putting in the work and the sweat equity in a project.
Yeah,
right?
No. In the book, I talk about this thing called spiritually aligned action. So when we're in a pusher state or a manic state or a workaholic state, we have a belief system that if I don't do it, it won't happen. So there's no God in that, right? It's all my will, my will, my will. And so what I've trained myself to do over the years is spiritually aligned action, which is about making sure that the intention is backed with service and love, right? And that could be any kind of intention, can be backed with service and love, but tuning into that part of the intention. And then really having faith, really strengthening your faith to trust that there is an energy working on your behalf. And then taking an action from that place of faith is when you take a spiritually aligned action, when it's backed with love, service, and faith. Do you following with me?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then the final step would be patience, because things like I looked at my son when he was born in 3 years of trying, and I said, dude, you were brilliant. You are so smart. Thank you for coming at the most accurate time.
Right.
You know,
right.
God's time is way better than mine. So that patience can come very easily. People are like, oh my God, patience, I can't do that. But patience comes when we are fully in faith. My favorite message from A Course in Miracles is those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety.
Damn, I've never heard that one. That's
it's a good one. And that certainty comes when we have really learned to rely on a higher power.
Right. Well, that's a great way to say it, because I think when many people hear the idea of avoiding resistance and that pushing thing that you talk about is that, well, if I don't do it, like you said, it's not going to get done. And like, if you're not really working hard and trying hard, then you must not be doing anything. Yeah. And there's a real delicate kind of balance in there to finesse that, where you do your part, but you leave the other part up to God, or whatever your concept of God is, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, you have to do your part. You can't hide out. You got to write the book. You got to I got it. I definitely was very active in the promotion of this book, but I did it all with joy and not pushing.
Right. So there's not that sense of tension.
And my reader's feeling that.
Yeah.
They feel that. Oh my God, I love this dog.
Cookies. Cookie are vibing. You know, it's funny. Whenever people come to record, she always sits with the guest and never sits with me.
Yeah, she wants new love.
Yeah, it's funny. She's bored with me.
No, she doesn't. She loves you.
No, she does. She does probably too much. We're working on the attachment issues. You know,
Gotcha.
Whenever I go to town, random friends take her, and now she's become much more interdependent.
Good.
So going back to the sobriety and these different methods of healing the underlying trauma, which not only has the net effect of you or of one staying sober because there's nothing more to mitigate, you're dealing with it in healthy ways. Have you ever explored or have any desire at all to explore one of these two modalities? Clinical psychedelics, doing MDMA, psilocybin, any of that with a trained psychiatrist, or the shamanic route of plant medicines?
Neither is for me. No. Neither is for me. First of all, I was a cocaine addict, so I don't want any of that, right? I just wanted to be in control. Right. But no, that's not for me. But I honor anyone's path. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems that there's kind of a huge awakening, not just in that area, but in general. And I'm sure you found it easier to talk about the spiritual realm and not be sort of branded a religious fanatic or a new age kook. I find that spiritual ideas and concepts, even in your book where you're talking about, you know, archangels and angels and guides, and you're kind of loosening up in the lexicon of spirituality and not making it so broad and ambiguous, but kind of having the courage to go there.
Yeah.
I find a lot of people are feeling an openness there, and also those of us that, well, I've not yet done the clinical route, but will soon, I anticipate. Yeah. But in sobriety and out, that people are really exploring all these ways of expanding their consciousness. Yeah. And it's all becoming sort of okay. It's an interesting thing to observe.
I think that you know, if you're in the pursuit of healing and you are guided to something that feels right, say yes.
Right.
As long as it's not destructive to you, you know?
Yeah.
When I say guided to something that feels right, I mean feels like a real healing path for you.
Yeah.
Say yes.
Well, I had people trying to get me to go to ayahuasca for years, and I was like, dude, I'm sober. I don't want to go trip out. Like, you know, I kind of just had I think after having done it finally, after, I guess I was 21 years sober or something when I went and did ayahuasca, and it was an amazing experience. In fact, I'm going to go do it again in December, and it was...
I was trying not to sneeze, and then I did it. I was holding my nose, trying so hard not
When my editors look at the sound file, they'll see a huge spike in the wave.
What the hell happened there?
And they'll take it out.
Yeah.
All right, editors, we're going to come back in on that.
Take out the sneeze.
So in terms of plant medicines, for me, it was like just a hard no for a long time because I didn't see any difference between that and like, oh, I feel like smoking some weed and watching TV.
Right.
Like it was just what? No. But having done it, and I'm not advocating this for everyone because I definitely laying there the first night in ayahuasca, one thought was like, oh my God, everyone I know needs to do this. And the next thought was like, I don't think most people would be interested in this or could handle this because it's such a deep dive into these other realms and into that trauma. For me, it was like, cool, let's go look at this. You know, after a few bells and whistles and some fun, I think the medicine was kind of showing me like, you want to see some shit? Watch this. And I was like fucking floored. Okay, you got my attention. Now let's do some work. And the work was going to the core of the core. And so it was much more of an inscape than an escape.
Yeah.
Right? I did drugs to get out of self. And I think intentionality with plant medicines and different psychedelics is everything because it was, my intention was not to go trip out. My intention was like, let's see what can be healed. And
there you go.
For me, it was.
That's it. It's all about what your intention behind it is.
Yeah. But it was also a huge hurdle with just like coming back going, do I still raise my hand as a guy that's sober? I mean, there's a whole other side of it that was really kind of difficult. And I had to finally just sort of break off from the mothership and go kind of on my own unique journey here. And I feel that my heart and my intention is pure and that I can trust myself. It was a lot of like trusting that my motives were pure.
It's good that you did it when you had so much recovery under your belt.
I would not recommend it for someone who like just got out of rehab and was like, cool.
Yeah. No.
I'm going to go do ayahuasca and find God. No, you're
Yeah.
probably going to find your way back into the bar is what you're going to find because you're going to activate that. Like it will be an escape.
Yeah.
So there's so many things I want to ask you about. So have you found then, if you can zoom out, I mean, I know you're in the middle, you know, you're a spiritual teacher and you're in the middle of this scene and you're such a huge name and have such a big following and all these books. If you can zoom out and look at the movement now versus when you started and how open you can be about your spirituality and archangels and guides and
I really pushed the metaphysical
because you went
envelope.
full woo-woo in this book.
Yes, I did.
And I sense that you've kind of always been, you know, exploring
I've been
that
expanding
realm.
the spiritual lexicon for 15 years, you know, and saying things in a way that would be meet people where they were. And I was able to push the metaphysical envelope with Super Attractor because I know people are ready for it. I felt it. People are so, I mean, you know, girls are having like aura parties and like, you know what I mean? Like there's just like the things I hear are just so mind blowing and it's great. You know, it's like there's no better trend than this.
Do you think that now you can just speak freely and just go full on, or is there anything that you hold back on because it sounds too religious or
I'm full
too
on.
spiritual?
I'm full on. Yeah, full on. Not holding back.
And when you started out, did you have to temper things a little bit?
Yeah, I never really said the word God. I would, you know, have different inner guide or universe. I didn't talk about the angels or my mediumship or anything like that. I would talk much more about inspiration and, you know.
Right.
But that was because I'm a translator. You're a translator. We're here to demystify these principles. And we're not, you know, I let God teach through me. And so for many years, this was the way that I was being guided. And now I was like, oh, this is, you know, people are ready. Let's go.
And you did a book about judgment.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that we all deal with a lot, where we fear judgment from other people, or we live in a state where we're judging everything around us all the time.
Yeah.
You know, as good, bad, right, wrong, and always like the mind just wanting to chew on things and have an opinion. Where are you in terms of your view on the things you covered in that book now? How's that expanded?
It's the most important book I've ever written.
Yeah?
And it's the one that most people can't get through.
Why is that?
It's hard. It's a lot of work. It's for the willing. It's not for someone who's like, oh, I love Gabby Bernstein. Let me read this book. It's like, I'm ready to go deep and I'm ready to look at my part and I'm ready to be willing to honor the wounds and really and practice forgiveness and see my addiction. Like look at my addiction to trauma. Not trauma. Look at my addiction to judgment. And I'm just sitting here petting her dog. And the thing about Judgment Detox is I didn't come out of writing that book and free of judgment, but I don't believe in it anymore. And so when I notice myself in judgment, I come back fast and I feel uncomfortable in it. And I know it's not me.
Have you looked at the idea of judging not only in like, oh, that person's wrong and I'm condemning them so that I can elevate my own ego and feel better, but just the idea of allowing your experience to be as it is without judgment, as positive or negative?
Just being in discernment?
Well, no, like going on a hike, and for me, sometimes what I do is I resist the temptation to be like, oh, a really beautiful day. Oh, look at that tree.
Oh, yeah, just
you know,
do nothing, right?
Yeah, because we're constantly judging good, bad, right, wrong.
Yeah, I don't.
Rather than just kind of being there.
I think that I perceive the judgment when judgment in any form is backed with fear, right? Then it's or separation. Then it's out of alignment with God. Whereas I think if you're, just enjoying the moment and judging the trees, that's God. That's good.
Right. And when it comes to forgiveness, how do we reconcile? Because that's kind of the end result of that judgment is usually condemnation. We're speaking about judgment in terms of being
the end
a
of the
negative
book,
attribute,
too.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people have a hard time in forgiveness when the other perpetrator is not imagined, but is an actual perpetrator? How do we reconcile forgiveness when wrong has been done?
Yeah, no, I've been working on that. Well, forgiveness doesn't mean that we have to see someone again if it's not safe or if it's triggering or whatever. Forgiveness is something important for people to understand, that forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for the other person, though they will benefit from it. But forgiveness is for yourself. It's for your freedom. Because as long as we're repurposing that resentment, you know, it's like that great saying that we're hitting ourselves with our head with the bat. Where A Course in Miracles says that you are the secret murderer. You know, that you've got the gun to your own head. So
drinking the poison, hoping the other guy will die.
Correct. So it's your freedom. It's your freedom that it offers. And then when I teach forgiveness, I don't tell people, just forgive. It's forgiveness is about having the willingness to forgive and asking God for help, and then letting it go and following the guidance you receive.
Would you subscribe to the idea that everyone is inherently on a soul level innocent?
Yes. 100%.
Explain that.
Well, we are all love. We are all beings of love. We come into this world and we have different experiences of trauma that begin a descent from magnitude into littleness, as the Course says, the detour into fear. And that builds an ego perception of the world, and our ego is just trying to stay safe. And that's when we do horrible things. But deep down, we're beautiful people. We're all good.
I think something that has been helpful to me is because people do shitty stuff, and a lot of people have hurt me in my life, like they've hurt everyone. And it's like the spiritual bypass to it is like, oh no, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that's true, but I think maybe for me, it's forgiving that entity because of the damage that's been done to them and the hurt that they're just trying to express. But not forgiving the act, right? Because there are some acts that are just unforgivable. There's things throughout history that
I understand.
It's like I can't forgive the act, but I can see the motive behind it and forgive.
My answer to your question is I'm still working on it.
Okay, that's a fair one.
I'll come back when I know.
That's a fair one.
Yeah.
Because I think I really have forgiven everyone in my life because I can.
But you can't forgive the experience.
Yeah, and in hindsight, there have been situations. Most situations in my life through inventory, if I really look at, sit down and write in an inventory, I fucking hate this guy because they did X, Y, Z. It's pretty quickly.
You can see your part.
Yeah, I can quickly arrive at like, oh, okay, well, I was being selfish. I had some motives. There's something I wanted, so I put myself in harm's way. Like 99.9% of the time, I had something to do with that experience being bestowed upon me. But there is that 1% where I was like, especially as a kid, like childhood trauma, sexual abuse, like there's no fucking way I was responsible for that in any way whatsoever. It feels
unforgivable. I understand completely. And I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
That's good. We'll do another. Your next book will be just about forgiveness.
I am going to write a book on trauma, and you'll be in it.
Oh, you are?
I'll get you involved.
Oh, cool. Well, I know a bit about that. When it comes to manifesting, and this is something, I know you're into Abraham Hicks, and there's so much great information out there about getting what you want. And I think that in some ways it's the desire and the wanting that keeps us stuck in a lower place. So say we want to attract a relationship or financial success. How can we do that without getting caught in those lower emotional states of lack?
Right. Sometimes, so Abraham teaches, sometimes when we focus so much on what we want, we actually are focusing on the lack and manifesting more of the lack. So this book is actually not a book on how to get stuff. It's a book on how to feel good. So if your primary focus and desire is to feel good, feel inspired, feel aligned with God, you'll attract what you want.
So do you think it's a matter of finding fulfillment with exactly what we have?
That's correct. Yeah. Feel good.
Right.
I mean, the fastest way to be a magnet for what you desire is to feel good. But not be like, now I got to feel good so I can get what I want. Abraham says, that so many people think when I have that thing, I'm going to be happy. When I have that relationship, I'm going to be happy. But the message really is that when I feel good and I'm happy, everything will be coming to me.
So being in vibrational alignment
That's right.
with that we want.
That's right.
Which is not coming from a place of like, I'll be happy when.
And then there's another, busting out all the great Course quotes. Okay, here we go. The secret to prayer is to forget what you think you need.
Oh, damn. I can't say I've read A Course in Miracles, but I've listened to it a million times, and you're like getting all these nuggets I never heard. My favorite one is, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
Yeah, we got that.
That's the ultimate, anytime you're like, those fuckers, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. Really? Is it really worth it?
Yeah.
And then, there's something else I wanted to ask you. Oh, you have a 3-step choose again method for getting rid of negative thoughts, because I find at times, and I'm sure many people can identify, that we get stuck in this loop. Once we energize that one negative thought, start talking about it, feeling it, thinking more, then we're just trapped in that loop and we can't get out.
Yes, we do. So this is the choose again method that's in the book. And it's the first step is to notice the negative fear-based thought that's on the loop and notice how it makes you feel. And then the second step is to forgive the thought. So, you can be like, oh, there you are again, funky thought. Or forgive yourself for having the thought, which is, I think most people that are in a spiritual path can have the ability to do that, to say, okay, I went there again. I know that's not who I am. I forgive myself for having that thought. And the third step is to choose again, to reach for the next best feeling thought. That's a very Abraham 101, right? Reach for that next best feeling thought. So reaching for a thought that you believe in that feels good.
There's something really cool that you covered in the book, and I actually bookmarked.
I got to get you a hardcover, baby.
Well, I have I'm special.
You are very special with the galley here.
Galley.
That's right.
The galley version of it. But when I came across this in the book, it was really fascinating to me because it's something that I learned from Dr. David Hawkins. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, and I used to go see him speak in Sedona. And
cool.
He's my all-time guy.
Yeah.
Very pragmatic.
Definitely.
Down-to-earth sort of teacher, but very, very profound. And on his scale of consciousness, he has all of these different emotional states.
Yes.
And at the very low state, which you basically have like a very similar version.
Well, this is Abraham. This is the emotional guidance scale. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I came across this and I was like, oh, shit, this is somewhere else. This is so cool because it was so freeing to me to find that well, perhaps you could explain it. I mean, I have it here, and I want to kind of hear your take on it because it's so profound.
The simplicity is that we think that we need to be in joy to be feeling better, but it's actually, you could be in despair and then move up to anger, and anger is a better vibration than despair. And then you could potentially move into jealousy, and jealousy is a better vibration than anger. And then you could move into boredom, and boredom is a better vibration than jealousy, right? So it's not that that feeling bad is bad. It's that when we're feeling bad, if we can reach for the next best feeling or the next best thought. And that reaching is a very proactive way of guiding ourselves up the scale.
What's really interesting about this, and I just remembered this, is when I first found the Hawkins scale, which is very similar to this. So on his, the lowest would be apathy. Yeah. Because then it's just like,
what am I doing?
You don't even give a fuck enough to get pissed.
Right.
If you can get up to anger, there's at least some momentum behind that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so on and so on. But I realized and I forgot about this until now, but when I was looking at that, it's very much correlated to the 12 steps.
Yeah.
The 12 steps sort of take you through those various levels of being and experiencing to a higher and higher place where ultimately you're in unconditional love and service at the 12th step,
you nailed
right?
It. Yeah.
But we first have to start out, many of us, in apathy and shame, hitting a bottom, whatever your bottom is. And then you get up to being pissed off about your circumstances.
Yeah, it's a better vibration.
Right?
Yeah.
And that gives you energy that catapults you maybe to step 3 of willingness, right?
Mad and smoking cigarettes to become willing. Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so it's like, I find that to be such a useful thing. And I'm so glad you put it in your book for people that might not find it in, someone as obscure as David Hawkins.
Yeah.
Because I think the spiritual bypass tendency is like, oh, I'm angry. I'm supposed to be in unconditional love.
Totally. That's what was the point of putting that in there.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And then you feel like a loser because you're like, I know I should be loving.
Right.
But I'm resenting the hell out of this person.
Right.
So how do I get through that?
You.
So I just love that when I found it. I was like, oh man, we have to talk about that. So I guarantee anyone that read your book, when they get to that, I'm going to tell you what page it's on.
Oh, no, it's not on that page.
Oh, it's on a different page
paperback,
in the real book.
The hardcover is like different pages.
Okay, well, it's called the Emotional Guidance Scale.
Yeah.
Find it in there, and it's extremely helpful. That whole concept helped me so much. I was really stoked to see that you did that. What's your morning routine like? I know that you're a meditator and you practice your Kundalini. What would you say to someone whose morning routine is roll over and open Instagram?
Don't do it. Don't do it. That's why it's so good to put your phone in another room, turned off. Get an old school alarm, and that's it. Or have a child. And my alarm is called Oliver. I don't wake up to an alarm anymore. He literally wakes me up at 6:30 on the dot. And I often will wake up a little bit before him, and I'll do a meditation. If I don't get to that meditation, my husband and I will have a routine where he does the bottle, I meditate, I go downstairs, and he will go meditate. So we kind of switch off in the morning. God bless any single mother out there that doesn't have that connection, that have that partner. God bless. I don't understand. I'm sending so much love and mad respect to the single moms out there. And then I make breakfast for my son. After his bottle, I make him butter eggs. He loves butter eggs.
Oh, yum.
And that's my current morning routine. It's been different over the years, but I practice transcendental meditation. I do Kundalini, of course, but TM is my devotional practice daily, twice a day.
And what would be the folly in just, what would your life look like if your morning routine was like, I'm going to get up and look at my numbers and get on email?
No, it sucks. It's a terrible day.
How does that set you up negatively for those people that are very proactive?
It's a terrible day. I mean, it's just like energetically, you're now, you didn't give yourself an opportunity to wind up, to rev up. You are immediately going into something, comparison, judgment, attack, separation. It's a terrible way to start your day. No good. Back
when we were talking about forgiveness, I wanted to divert to something, and I forgot until now. And I was this weekend, I was at a seminar with John Gray up in the Bay Area, and he was telling us how many times he's been sued just for just libel bullshit.
Yeah, he has been sued a lot.
And he's had to fork out all this cash. And, according to him, there's 3 sides to every story, but he was innocent, And so he said, well, when you're, the brighter your light, the more mosquitoes gather. And I know that I don't follow like online drama much, but I'm aware of you and people like you that are kind of in the same realm as I, and there'll be periodic like troll attacks and just people turn against you and accuse people of all kinds of weird shit, especially in this really bizarre PC culture that we live in, where you almost can't say anything without somebody being offended.
Yeah.
How do you psychologically and practically deal with internet trolls and just basic social media drama?
I don't look at it. I don't know it's there. If I see it, like if I come across it, I forgive and delete. Straight up.
I call it block and bless.
Right. Same thing. But I have my team looking out, and they don't tell me anything unless it's like, genuinely something we need to address.
Yeah. Have you had anything happen?
In the book, I write about something where I went on this, one of my assistant called me and she's like, oh my God, this Facebook page is blowing up with negative hate on you. And they were like going off on me.
What was their gripe?
They just didn't like me. I mean, they're just literally like, one of the things this woman said was, she wrote a book called Spirit Junkie. Isn't junkie a bad word and sending out a negative message for addicts? Like, she didn't read the book. Like, she didn't know that's my book on sobriety. You know what I mean? Like, right? So it was just a bunch of bullshit. But like, there was like 30, 40 people getting in on it and being like, oh, finally someone's saying how they really feel about Gabby Bernstein. She's an asshole, And so I got really hooked into it. 40 people is not a lot in the internet, but it feels like a lot, right? Or one feels like a lot. And so I was getting really into it. And then I was really into it and I was really upset about it. My husband kind of like pulled me aside that night and was like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I'm just so upset about this thing. And he said, stop focusing on all these haters and start focusing on like the thousands of DMs that you don't even know how to get to on your phone, and let me teach you how to get to them. So he taught me how to find my DMs, and I was like, whoa, you guys have been here all this time. And so I spent like 5 days just like DMing and writing people back and telling my Instagram story that I was going to DM everybody back. And I just got so into the service and so much into the joy. And then at 5 a.m. I woke up one morning and I was still feeling the negativity of things. So I went on my DM, just to be of service. And I saw a young woman on there, and she was DMing me saying, listen, Gabby, I was sober for 2 years. I just went out and I want to kill myself. And so we started going back and forth. And this is 5 a.m. for me, probably like 3 a.m. for her. She'd like crashed her car. Like literally all this had just happened.
Oh, wow.
And we were just back and forth. And then finally we got on the phone, chatted it up with her, helped her get back into a program. She's still sober.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
I thank those haters.
Right.
They put me back into service.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm famous enough to really get effed with, but there are times where I'm pretty irreverent. I mean, I've been well behaved in our conversation because it's just our vibe. It's pretty above board, but at times I go off on a tangent. I might talk about something that's not PC, and every once in a while I do get someone who's super triggered and
We'll honor their trigger, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I know what it comes from, and most of the time I am just like, whoa, I'm not going to engage.
Don't engage.
But there are times when I have to admit it's a little tempting. The other day I didn't like fully engage, but I did just make a point, and someone had made a comment about how my podcast lacks diversity because I'd done one episode where I interviewed, God forbid, a white male, and he's like a buddy of mine. He's a young kid, and we're shooting the shit. And it's like, it's a bro-y conversation because we're fucking bros. Sorry. You know what I mean? And
but that's not true. So if you
no, but that's the thing. But it's like that ego need in me to defend myself. So I actually went through my feed and I was like, holy shit, my guests are more than 50% female.
Yeah.
So there's your diversity. I mean, I think it's probably more like 60.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I've had as many people of color on my show, but that's not for any reason. It's just, if they're there, they're there. I don't even think about what gender someone is or what,
you're just
how much
looking
pigment
for
they have in their skin. I'm looking for someone who has a point of view that I'm interested in sharing. But it was a little bit triggering because I was like, I'm being fucking falsely accused. Like, I don't even think about that kind of shit, And so I posted something like on my Instagram stories, and, of course, 100 people are like, yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
We're with you. And then, there was 10 people that were like, no, they're right. You know what I mean? And so it was a lesson for me, and like, oh man, because when and if, God willing, I get to a Gabby Bernstein level and I have a bunch of books and I'm really very high profile, I don't want to ever be in a position where I'm bothered by that or where I engage and feed negativity just because someone's internal pain is so great that they now feel the need to spread that pain.
Totally. Yeah, just disengage.
So you're pretty good at that. You're just like, I'm not.
Look, when I'm being called out for something that's true, I will address it. If I'm being called out for something that is false, I will pray and walk away.
Right. Have there been situations where someone's talked shit about you and you've reflected and gone, you know what, they're right, I'm going to work on that?
Yeah.
And if so, what did you find?
Recently I had a big talk in New York last 2 weeks ago, and a lot more people came to the door than we expected. Like it was oversold, pretty much is what happened. And we didn't have enough volunteers, and this is my excuse part of it. But it was like kind of a shit show at the book line. I was exhausted, and the line was a disaster. And I just kind of got up and was like, everybody, like, let's organize this. Just kind of like lost my shit because I was out of control. It's like, everybody, we just got to fix this, And like, we have to make the pictures faster or whatever. I was just an asshole. I was a total asshole. And wasn't looking people in the eye, and just was like, tired and not showing up. And it's a privilege to sign books. It's a privilege to have people that want to wait online for you to sign their book. And I was an asshole. And I woke up feeling so much guilt. And I received a few emails from people being like, I can't believe that you did that. Like, I drove like 5 hours to see you. Like, how could you not be Gabby Bernstein, And I was like, I assure you I am, and I will make this right. I wrote a blog about how to apologize, and I apologized.
Interesting. What's your advice when you owe an amends? What do you think is a great way to go about that?
Don't make any excuses. Just don't defend yourself. Just say, I'm sorry, I fucked up.
Simple. Some of your answers sometimes are short, and I'm like, well, what else? But that's all that needs to be said.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, so next thing I want to get into is something you spend a lot of time in end of your book, and that's gratitude and appreciation as being the antidote for that feeling of lack and sense of not having what you need. So how does gratitude and appreciation play out in your life, and what's the difference between those two, if there is one?
The practice of appreciation helps us create more of what we want. So when we make a commitment to focus on what is thriving in our life, it redirects our focus off of what's not thriving, and it creates a different energy that we will be backed by, and it feels good. So if you can begin your day with appreciation, if you have a partner, wake up and say, I appreciate you for this, 5 minutes of that would really kick off the day. For instance, my husband had a stomach bug before we came out here, and he missed the weekend, and I've been so worried about him. Like, you're dehydrated, and drink more water, and you need to get it. Like, LA has IV drips. They'll come to the house, the IV drip, And he's like, back off, lady. And I got on the phone with him this afternoon. I was like, okay, Gabby, practice what you preach. Like, stop focusing on the negative, And I got on the phone with him and I said, you're doing so much better. Like, I'm so proud that you even got on the plane. You sound so much better. It's so awesome that you can take these work calls. And I heard in the moment his voice just lit up, and he's like, I am feeling better. I'm doing better every day. It's just like, boom, appreciation. What's working?
Do you guys have that as a regular practice where you?
We do.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Sometimes we forget.
That's something that John Gray was talking about this weekend, actually. That's a great practice to do when you're in a relationship, is to express your appreciation.
It's so good.
Especially, any ladies listening, if you want to keep a man happy, just constantly tell him what a good job he's doing.
Yeah.
We actually really need that.
All you want to do is make the woman feel good and serve and, and be in that place of, let them know how good they are. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, everyone needs that, of course, but I think that's really the secret sauce with us guys. At least I can speak for myself. Well, listen, man, I think I've covered everything that I want to cover with you. I
think you're so cool. This day has been excellent. I started my day with Maria Menounos she was formerly on E! or something. She's awesome. Oh, cool. Super spiritual. I walked out. I was like, you're my friend. Here I am now with
network TV and stuff.
No, she has her own podcast.
Podcast. Oh, okay.
And here I am with you, and I'm like, you're my friend. I have picked up friends along the way today.
Oh, cool.
I have picked up new friends along the way.
Yeah, you got
today.
one sitting right next to you.
And I got Cookie.
It looks like she's about to throw up.
Don't throw up on me.
As long as she's pointing the other way.
Not on my shoe.
When she does that licking thing, it's sometimes an indicator. Please, Cookie.
That would be a great end to the show.
Yeah, do not puke on the podcast, sweetie. You got this. All right, who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have profoundly influenced your life that our listeners might be able to go also learn from?
Dr. Wayne Dyer is still my teacher. I channel him to write these books, and I channel him when I speak. A big one. Marianne Williamson was an excellent teacher for me because she really showed me the type. She was an example of what I wanted to create for a new generation. So I'm very, very deeply grateful to her for that. And my son Oliver, my greatest teacher.
I bet. That's
no joke.
A good one. Yeah, I think you're the first guest out of 250 that's mentioned their kid. Oftentimes people say my grandmother, my uncle, my mom.
My child. Yeah, definitely.
Good one. And where can people find you? Website, social media, etc.
GabbyBernstein.com or at Gabby Bernstein.
Yeah. Say that one more time without hitting the mic.
GabbyBernstein.com or at Gabby Bernstein.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Good to get to know you today.
So good.